some coach that's out there that will get you, and you're not even freaking ready. You don't even have enough muscle on some of you guys, and then the coach is like, oh yeah, I can get you ready for a show in 12 weeks. Yeah, I could do it. Guys, prepare. Don't get on stage just because you want to get on stage. A lot of work is done in the off season,
What's up, everybody? I'm here sitting with IFBB Pro Kris Dim. He's agreed to talk to us and give you guys a little bit of a backstory on who he is, give some advice for some of the new guys that are jumping on stage for next year. So welcome, Kris. Thanks for meeting with us.
Well, thanks for having me on, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just start with who you were prior to being a bodybuilder and IFBB Pro. Before you started getting into the sport, who was Kris Dim?
Man, Kris Dim was a 98-pound wrestler, soaking wet my freshman year, and I told people I was going to be a bodybuilder. They laughed at me. And more so because of the fact that there wasn't any Asian professional bodybuilders at the time. But I didn't care, man. I was that person who's like that lion, that kitten looking at himself in the mirror, seeing himself as a lion. That was me, I didn't care what people think. I didn't care about the naysayer. All I cared about was my focus and my drive on getting where I need to get to. And it didn't matter if it took me 10 years, 15, 20 years. I knew that my perseverance wasn't going to stop no matter what.
Right. Were you playing sports or anything? And so you did wrestling, and then did you do any?
Yeah, I did wrestling and I played football. Those are my two sports in high school. I stuck to wrestling, and then when I started hitting about, I'd say my freshman year when I was wrestling, I kind of looked like a little Bruce Lee, ripped but skinny. And I had a coach that was used to be a bodybuilder.
Okay.
And then I started lifting from freshman to sophomore year. When I came back, he noticed that I put on a little bit more muscle on me. And he said, man, Kris, you should be a bodybuilder. He said, I did it, and I think you'd be really good at it, because based on the size that you put on within a year. And I said, man, I'm not putting on those Speedo, that's not going to happen. And that was me, the beginning. And then, once I got on that stage, I backed in, there was a best poser. So I took home my teenager first place in the lightweight, took the overall trophy, and then took best poser trophy. So I racked 3 trophies home at about 130 pounds soaking wet. That was my my sophomore, in the beginning of my sophomore year. And then that's when I decided to hang up wrestling and pursue bodybuilding.
Do you remember what show that was? The first one you did?
That was the Santa Rosa North Bay. That was the name of the show.
Gotcha.
And that's the one that I took home 3 trophy and got pretty much hooked after that.
Okay, nice. And then did you end up having a coach like helping you for the next few shows after?
I did it all by myself. I was 18 years old and I had a natural guy kind of help me a little bit, a guy named Carl Ross. But it was a short amount of time. The rest has just been me. And I didn't start getting a coach until I was 28, when I kept taking second at the USA, second at the National, and I wasn't getting my pro card. And it took me that long. And then that's when I hooked up with my friend now, Milos. And back then, I think Milos had like 7, 8 Mr. Olympia guys he was training for. And I wanted to find the best coach. And we live in Sacramento. We would fly down, my mentor and I, a guy named Leonard, him and I would fly down to LA and train with Milos for the day and give him about $2,500, $3,000, and then fly back to Sacramento. Milos's fee wasn't cheap back then. I mean, it was $350 an hour. But, to me, a lot of people look at it as, man, why would you pay that kind of money? Well, knowledge is everything, guys. I mean, once some of you guys that don't have a coach, who don't have any direction, my best advice to you is invest into a good coach, because let me tell you, a coach is going to take you a lot quicker than doing it on your own, and take the ego out of the way, guys, and find a good coach. To me, it's an individual thing. It's whatever you want to do. But let me tell you, get somebody who's experienced that's going to help you, because they'll take you a lot further. And that's what happened with me. I hooked up with Milos. And then I did when I was 29, I won the USA and took second at the national. And then when I was 30, I took second at the USA, and I didn't get my pro card until the national. And I told Milos that if I didn't get my pro card when I was 30, I was going to hang it up. I'm done. And you got to do it because you still enjoy it, not because, right. Oh, I took second, or I took third. Look at it a different way, guys. If you're making improvement every single year, you did your job. That's all you got to be focusing on, is you versus you.
Kind of focusing more on your own progress as opposed to kind of comparing it based on what the judges are they're saying about you.
Yeah, or social media, because you see these before and after picture, and then what they don't tell you is that muscle memory comes back a lot quicker. So if you've gotten somewhere once, it'll get you back a lot quicker. You see these 6-week transformation, 2 months transformation, and some of them are straight up lies, but for the most part, when you look at these things and then you look at your progress and then you get butt hurt and thinking, let me take more gear. That's not the answer, guys. Every person will get a different result. Some people got really, really good results quick. Other people, like myself, it took me 16 years before I turned pro, So compare you to you. Don't compare you to social media, because you'll lose every single time. Any coach that says, I know how to work your body, I know what it takes, they're full of shit, because they don't know your body yet. Because some of you guys might be able to take in 2,000-3,000 calories. When I was working with Stephen Pinto, I gave him, and he'll tell you, like, we're carving up in basically 5,000 calories overnight.
So is it like a lot of experimenting in the beginning?
Yeah, a lot of experimenting from the beginning, trying to figure out what works for his body, what doesn't. We'll try the ketogenic diet. We tried carb cycling. We'll do basically 2-day keto, 1-day carb. We'll try different things, but even that alone, after about 6 weeks, your body will get used to it. And then once we hit a plateau, then we have to try different things again.
Right. I think one of the things, I competed in a few different shows when I was younger, and I would make the mistake of waiting until I could see more definition to start practicing my posing. And then I had somebody tell me, like, you got to practice way earlier on. Do you have any advice on posing for some of the new guys coming into it?
Yeah, posing is an art, like everything else. I mean, even if you don't have all the muscle, posing is great practice for 2 reasons. One, it builds your cardiovascular. 2, when you pose and you keep posing, that muscle density will start to come out even more. That muscle will harden up, and you'll actually get tighter and tighter and tighter. So posing is actually a really good thing for you to do anyway. I make a mistake a couple of shows of waiting till the last minute, but Milos will call me right out, even though he's like, I know you're a good poser, but I know you winged this one. And I've done it. So we all do, but for the most part, is my guys is, I always have them start off at least 8 weeks out.
Okay.
That's to be safe. 8 weeks out is a good amount of time. If you can start off 12 weeks out, that's even better. But for the most part, guys, 8 weeks out, and tan. Like, I know some of you guys won't tan. Some of you guys, white guys, don't tan. And then you get on that stage, even if you put that tanning stuff on, it doesn't match, because it starts to turn you more orange. Get a good base tan, so that way, when you get on that stage, it'll look a lot more natural for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Could you talk a little bit about a show that you feel like didn't go very well? I think for a lot of new guys, they feel really nervous going into their first show. And, I definitely had an experience like that where, I felt like, there's something I could have done to prepare better ahead of time, mentally, or,
Well, Dan, you took the word out of my mouth from the beginning, right there, and that's actually the answer. The answer is, prepare, because there's some coach that's out there that will get you, and you're not even freaking ready. You don't even have enough muscle on some of you guys, and then the coach is like, oh yeah, I can get you ready for a show in 12 weeks. Yeah, I could do it. Guys, prepare. Don't get on stage just because you want to get on stage. A lot of work is done in the off season. If you're doing your off season work and you're putting on a lot of muscle, then yeah, you can contest prep. But if you don't have a lot of muscle on you, don't do a show, because you're going to get on that stage and you're not going to look at your best, and then you're going to have a bad experience and you're not going to get back on stage again.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to prepare, and you want to find a coach that's honest. Milos would tell me, hey man, look at your back fat, man. It looks like you're holding a lot of fat back there. He'll be honest with you.
Right.
And that's what you need. It's like, that's how I am with my guys. I train them hard. And I tell people straight up, I go, look, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to train hard. I mean, because I believe that if you tell me you want to get on stage, I believe that if you want to be the best, you train like the best. That means you give it your all. Every time you're in the gym, it's not like one time I'm going to hit it half-assed, one time I'm going to hit it hard. No. When you get in that gym, you're going to train like it's your last day in that gym. And that's how I train my guys. It's because I want them to experience what it feels like to train hard.
Yeah.
Because then if they're used to it, now they got a new bar in their head, how high they got to push every time they hit the gym themselves. And so, you got to bust your butt. You can't sit there and not prepare for a show, and then 12 weeks out and go, I want to do a show. It doesn't work like that. You should be preparing for a show all the time. And the only thing you're doing is when it comes to contest prep time, you're just sculpturing that body. That's it.
Right. You mentioned, being backstage, being prepared. Is there anything that you do on the day of the show to kind of mentally prepare when you go on stage?
Yeah. Put on your headset. Don't walk around with your friends. Go in the back. Focus on you. Put your routine in your head. Do your routine, with the music on with your headphones. And then that way you're focusing on, yourself. Put your foot up. Just relax. Because some of you guys that produces a lot of cortisol, you'll start to smooth out overnight. I've seen guys smooth out overnight. So, some people who gets real stressed, that's the time to be in the back, putting on your music, taking deep breaths, working on you, and not walking around all over the place. And then you're going to hold water. You're going to get stressed out. And next thing you know, you get on that stage, all that hard work you put into that 12, 16 weeks, you just messed up because the fact that you're out and about with your friends versus being in the back, putting your foot up and just focusing on the show.
Right. Interesting. One of the other questions I was going to ask you is about sponsorships. How does somebody that is, trying to make a name for themselves and, maybe they haven't won shows yet, how does somebody land a sponsor? And maybe there's a difference between how it was in the past compared to now.
In the past, it's once you go to these shows and you start doing really well, then you can actually start emailing these sponsors and letting them know that this is the show that you did. This is what you placed, and you'd like to basically find a way to get picked up by them, and just tell them, even if you have to stroke the ego a little bit, tell them you use their product and it's good stuff, and you really like their product and you want to know how you can get picked up and get sponsored by them. Nowadays, it's all social media, man. I hate to say it, it's a little bit different. You might not even be a pro, but you got your social media, you got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people following you. They see that that's what they're going to go with now versus before. It was like, okay, let's see how I place you well at these shows. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still exception to the rules. If you're a freak of nature, and like one of my guy right now that I'm working with, he's 6'6", 6'5", 6'6". He's huge. But I'm trying to get his weight up, and we went from 240 down to 260 now, but that's still small for him. So we're trying to get him up to about 300 pounds. If you're a freak of nature, you stand out. They know that you can, you're going to be able to stand out in their booth, and you're going to be standing out in general. So that might be a different news for them versus somebody who's a smaller guy. And now you're going to have to just build your social media, and then just, I'm not saying, don't place well or don't look good, because it comes hand in hand together. But it takes social media and it takes you looking good to get your sponsor. And then, of course, you just got to reach out to them. And same goes for Pinto. Pinto, when I remember he wasn't sponsored by anybody, I'll tell him, hey, man, you got to hit all these company up, write a letter to them, find out who they are. And then finally he got picked up by BSN, and he's still with BSN. It's been like 4 or 5 years now. So, you got to go out there and put the work in. They're not going to come out looking for you. So again, social media, looking good, and going out there reaching out for them.
Yeah, I like that last one, going out and reaching out for them. I think a lot of guys that I've seen are kind of waiting for someone to reach out to them or discover them. So that's good advice. I really like that.
Guys, you know how many bodybuilders all over the world? There's a lot of bodybuilders. Okay, I'm talking about, probably within the millions now. So if there's that many bodybuilders, you're not going to stand out unless you go out there and reach for them. And you got to just, go out to these shows and talk to the person who's in charge of sponsorship, and see if you can send them some emails. Send them your pictures. Send them all the stuff that you've done in the past, and what you can do for their company, because it's always about what can you do for them.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Do you have any thoughts on this year's Olympia, on some of the guys in the or any predictions that you might have for?
Man, it's such a tough lineup this year, because it's hard to say, man. But I know that looking at video of Big Ramy, I mean, he looks like he's the most sucked in I've ever seen him on his face right now for this far out. Big Ramy's got the size. If he can just come in with extra muscle detail, I think he'll win it, but if not, it's obviously Brandon Curry is going to be in that same mix again. Dexter Jackson's in that same mix again. The one person that I think that can crack the top 3 is Flex Lewis, my boy Flex Lewis. I think he can crack that top 3, because he's put on a lot of muscle in this off season right here, and if he can come in with a lot more muscle, but within that same tightness that he came in at the 212, I think he's got a really good chance of being up there.
Yeah. What do you think of Phil coming back?
I think Phil will be in that top 3. I think Phil, my prediction, and I could be wrong if you guys think I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be between Phil or Flex Lewis. That's okay. My prediction. And then, of course, Brandon Curry would be up right there in that top 3. So those are my top 3 right there.
Nice. Yeah. What do you think of the classic guys?
Classic guys, I think it's going to be the same thing. I like Chris's shape. I mean, I think because he's got the height and the muscle density, I think he'll probably win it again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can you share us a little bit what it was like for you to be up on stage, competing at that level?
Yeah, I used to look at all these guys back then. You got to remember, magazines were big. They weren't like a lot of social media now. And I used to look at all these guys. Kevin Leroney was one of my favorite. Before that was Lee Labrada was one of my favorite. And I used to look at these magazines of these guys, and then I started seeing myself, when I started, placing in the USA and the national, and they started, putting those pictures up in the magazine. But it was like looking at these guys in the magazine and then getting on stage. And then I remember the San Francisco Pro beating out guys like Chris Cormier, Gustavo Bedell, David Henry, you know, all these big names, and qualified for the Olympia. And it was really surreal because you got to remember, like as a kid, that's all I've ever thought about is competing in the Mr. Olympia. And to actually be on stage at the Mr. Olympia, it's surreal, man. I wish I could say anything else, but you know, I'm like, man, I'm up here. I did it, you know. And but like anything else, you know, for me, it's always chasing the next thing, you know. And then of course, I did compete my second Mr. Olympia the next year, same thing. And then I was going through kind of a breakup and a divorce, so that was hard, but I did it, you know. But then I came back the following year, did it again. So like my thing is like once I start seeing my picture in all the magazines, once I got on the Mr. Olympia stage, it was surreal. But to get to that level, guys, you got to fight. I mean, you know, not everybody could be a Phil Heath and call himself the gift and within 4 or 5 years and get on the Mr. Olympia stage. Someone who's a slow gainer myself took me 16 years. So that's what I'm saying. It's like whether it takes you 5 years, like Phil Heath, 4 years, or it takes me 16 years, you know, if you got a goal and you got a dream, you know, just shoot for it, guys. Don't let anybody say you can't do something because, you know, I did it. I mean, I was the first Asian to get on the Mr. Olympia stage. And then after me, you know, my buddy Hide, and then you got all these other Asians now, you know, that's getting on the basically who's the pro bodybuilder. So I didn't care what anyone else says saying that, you know, Chris, you can't do it. You're Asian, you're skinny, you'll never get on that stage. I didn't care what they say. I care what I wanted to think. And I just worked hard and I pushed myself. And like I said, I was a slow gainer. You might get results way faster than me. You know, it might take you 5 years, 4 years. I don't know what your potential is, but whatever it is, don't let, you know, it discourage you because the fact that you feel like, you can't do it. Or some of you guys might be starting bodybuilding when you're 30 years old. Look at, you know, Vince Taylor. He didn't turn pro until over 40. Right. So my thing is, look at Albert Becker. He got on the Olympia stage at 65, competing with these young bucks. So you're never too old, you're never too young. If you got to go, guys, shoot for it. Doesn't matter what it is. It don't even have to be bodybuilding. It could be, you know, you wanting to go back in a career, be a doctor or an attorney or real estate. It doesn't matter, but it's all the same mindset over and over again. And that's just push for something you really want to do and don't let anybody discourage you and get you getting there.
Love that, man. I love that. That's awesome. Was going to ask lastly, you know, if you have any advice for some of the new guys going on stage next year, or some of these guys that have just been admiring bodybuilders that haven't actually made that move yet. Do you have any, you know, closing advice for some of these guys that are going in next year?
Guys, just like I said, just do it, man. Because, you know, I got a friend of mine who's talk about competing. I won't mention his name. Talk about competing over and over and over again. So I'm going to do a show. I'm going to do a show. I'm going to do a show. 20 years later, he's like, I'm going to do a show. I'm going to do a show. Never did it, right? So don't be that guy, man. I mean, if you have thought about competing, getting on stage, get on stage. I had a guy who I trained, 58 years old, diabetic, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, shoulder injury. And we never thought about bodybuilders, but I got such good progress with him that I'm like, you know, won't we think about doing a show? He's like, I don't know about that. I said, let's just do one show. That's it. And then, you know, after that, then if you want to keep competing, great. If you don't, you don't have to. And I got him down 2 weeks before a contest, and he wanted to quit. He's like, I don't think I'm cut out for this. And, you know, and I said, you know what? Yeah, you are. You know, you can do it. You know, I know it's hard, but we only got 2 weeks left. Well, he did miss the San Diego one, 50 and over and 60 and over. Wow. And, you know, here's a guy who's fat, diabetic, overweight. And in 2 years, I got him getting on stage and winning Mr. San Diego. I'm sorry. So he won the Mr. San Diego show. And he's never done a show again. But he's got that to brag to his grandkids, you know? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Whether you compete one time just because you want to get in the best shape of your life, so just to challenge yourself that you can do it, just like I did. 10 years, I decided to come back and do a wheelchair bodybuilding competition. And the reason why I did it, it wasn't for anybody else but for me, because now I couldn't use my legs anymore to get into this machine to brace down on these weights and everything else. I said, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to come back and do it. I went from fat and out of shape in 1 year, was able to come back and took second at the Arnold Classic wheelchair and third at the wheelchair Mr. Olympia. But that was it. I'm going to retire. I'm not competing anymore. I just want to train my guys now. But I came back to challenge myself. So if you guys got that challenge to want to get on stage, do it. But make sure you prepare for it with your posing, with tanning, with your diet. Make sure you look the part when you get on stage, not looking like a army guy just getting on stage and pasting that stuff on there. You see those guys. And so make sure you're prepared, but compete, guys. Get on that stage if you've been hungry and you've been wanting to do it. And best advice is find a good coach to get you there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Kris. I really appreciate it. Guys, I'm going to leave Kris's Instagram and email on the description box below. So feel free to click on that if you want to connect with Kris individually and check out some of the stories he posts up. Thanks again, Kris. This is amazing. You're a really inspiring guy, and you're one of my favorite guys to follow. So thank you again for taking the time to meet with us. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.